On this episode of Remington's Inside the Industry, I have the pleasure of sitting down with a very unique woman who also has a unique profession, and one made up nearly entirely of men. My friend Danene van der Westhuyzen is both a professional hunter and veteran safari operator in her native country of Namibia, one of southern Africa's most beautiful and popular safari destinations. On top of that, Danene is also the president of the Namibia Professional Hunters Association and is one of the safari industry's most passionate and effective voices for the conservation through hunting model I believe so strongly in. Come along as we get started on the tracks of a very interesting hunter, conservationist, and hunting advocate. You're going to like where she leads us. This podcast is brought to you by Remington Firearms. For more information on the new era of Remington, visit our site at RemArms.com. First of all, welcome, Danene. I'm really excited to have you. I think Dave told me, he said, you have to first pronounce their name. Danene van der Westhuyzen.
Van der Westhuyzen.
Van der Westhuyzen.
Yeah, but you don't have to try again. That's good.
My wife is Dutch, so...
Okay, Van der Westhuyzen.
Okay, that's good enough. That's good. I have to tell you, at the Dallas Safari Club gala, that you were a speaker. Mm-hmm. You did an absolutely freaking outstanding job. My wife and I were both there. We both went home and said, boy, this woman is really good. She did such a good job. So
thank you so much.
It really was brilliant. It was told a great story, but there was passion. It was everything. So it was really fantastic.
I'm happy to, yeah. I'm really happy to, and I'm glad that it helps the cause at least. You know, DCF Foundation do so many things. So to do that small part is nothing, and I'm glad that it trickled through at least to the emotions of people that were there. You know, I was the one that put my hand up that one day, and I was so adamant about the specific point that was made, and I can't even remember what, but that's how things started. And I got my professional hunter's license, and I started hunting, and with that I really started to appreciate not only the hunt but everything that goes around it much, much more. And I believe that, and I love that about Americans, I must say that there's...
I'm a Canadian, so be careful.
Okay, but I'm sure it's the same for Canadians.
No, it is. I'm a U.S. citizen, so it's okay.
There's such patriotism in this country. You know, I drive around, so when we drive around throughout the cities and the towns, you always see these flags around. You notice the way people speak about their country. And to me, that is really something that struck my heart closely, because that's really something that you guys portray strongly, and you're proud to do that and to be that. And I feel the same way about Namibia. And I think it's very important to ultimately save and protect and see the end goal of where we all want to end up when it comes to hunting environments, wildlife, nature, and the experiences, really savoring it and experiencing it as wild as we could. So that's how I came about it. I always have an opinion, and I love sitting around a table and conversing with people, because and especially if you look at Africa has problems as all other countries, but it's diverse problems, and it's we can learn from each other so much. If you look at the different conservation models throughout Africa, there's really lots to learn from each other. But even when we work with the Canadian Outfitters program, they do such a great job. So that's the thing that I'm very passionate about, is to sit around a table and really talk about what can we do and what can we do to become better.
Well, interesting that you mentioned that, because Mark and I, when you were here a couple of minutes ago, Mark and I were having this discussion, and I happen to be pretty vocal about it, because I have always thought, and I believe today, that one of the biggest mistakes that the hunting industry has made, and I don't know how to change it, is by calling it trophy hunting. Because the non-hunter is pretty convinced that the only thing we want is trophies, which is absolutely not the case.
Which is a sad thing, because if you really trickle it down to the basics, the word trophy is still just a word. And it's sad that it's become such a hyped up word, because if we use the word entity hunting, for example, or you could call it
or just
anything
hunting.
you like, or just hunting, it would have probably become the same type of hype on that word.
It could very well.
But the point that I know that you're trying to make is that because we hunt and we want to take something back as a remembrance of that hunt and that experience, which, by the way, is now a part of the animal, it brings about maybe too strong of an emotion to people that are not knowledgeable enough and that are not aware of what that contribute actually to the ultimate environment. And it's a sad fact. And that's why, for example, Namibia was not forced, but our government actually passed it through Parliament and decided that we're not going to use the word trophy any longer. It's now conservation hunting.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
So, which is great, and some people even go so far as to say it's selective conservation hunting. And it's a step forward, but still, it's again, from now on, how this word will again be handled is up to us and how we portray that. I think the world, what we lack as hunters is empathy from the world out there. And I think that really is something that can be portrayed on a different scale. But I do think there's too much focus on trophies, on sizes. Personally, I think that if we really want to get forward and show our real colors and our true colors, we should move away from scoring animals completely. We should hunt most productive animals, or endeavor to at least.
Yeah,
it's not a problem to shoot the prime animal, but the animal should be the focus and not the hunter.
Exactly, I agree. And non-productive animals, I'm a meat hunter. That's really, I do hunt in Africa, but I also recognize that the meat used, I actually, my first hunt was at, because they're competitors, I hate to say it, but it was Blazer Safaris in Namibia.
Okay.
And I just had a great time. I enjoyed it immensely. But they pay, their staff gets, I think 50 kilos of meat per month or something like that, which is a huge thing. And people in North America don't even think that way.
I had an interesting conversation just now with Catherine Semke from Perk, who also does a lot of amazing conservation work. She's a researcher and scientist. But it was interesting. She noted that, and she's a big hunter herself, but she said that she can't believe the amount of American hunters that don't really realize that all of the meat are being consumed in Africa. I mean, we live off it. We also grew up as meat hunters, basically. We never knew what conservation hunting or trophy hunting were when we were little. So for us, it's part of our livelihoods. It's a necessity. And if you look at Namibia especially, we don't have water, so there's no production on fruit or vegetables or maize or crops. We don't have that. We only have our wildlife. So it's very necessary to be able to utilize it sustainably. And that's how it came about. But, you know, talking again, going back to the word trophy and sizes and all of that, I do think that, and you know it, but it's very difficult to explain to people that we don't hunt per se only for the trophy. It's about that experience. But you need to have something that you can take back as a remembrance, whether it's a video or a photo, or
even if it is the horns, it doesn't matter.
I mean, if you look at the different types of hunting that's on offer, you've got meat hunting for sustenance. You've got management hunting, which is very necessary to control. And then you've got trophy hunting. And in all three of those aspects, parts of the animal are retained. So what's the difference between consuming the meat or taking back a piece of the horn or a piece of the skin?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think there's anything. And I think Mark brought something up that was interesting. I think it makes a lot of sense, too, is that if you look at the world today, or I'm not going to say the world, because when I was in Africa, my wife and I were in Africa in Namibia, 2012 it was, I think. we spent a week in Namibia hunting, and then from there we went to two really high-end safari camps in Botswana. And I think that was just shortly after that the Botswana banned elephant hunting, etc. But anyway, with the high-end safari camps, they absolutely hate hunters.
Yeah.
They just really do. But the staff there love the hunters because they know what they get. They depend on them. But anyhow, we were at the community table for dinner one night, and some woman, I can't remember whether she was English or American, she asked, what were you doing in Namibia? And I said, hunting. And that went over like a ton of shit, I can tell you. Excuse my language. And my wife, she's a very smart woman, and she said, yes, my husband shot a zebra, and we fed the meat, which was factual. We fed the meat to 3 orphaned cheetahs. Oh, that's this nicest thing. It's so sweet. Well, all of a sudden it went, because I fed cheetahs that were orphaned, it went from a terrible thing to a wonderful thing. If I said I fed a family, it would have stayed a terrible thing. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, I know, and it brings me to another funny thing that I also think is strange, and this comes out of the hunting community. I would have many hunters sit around the campfire at night, and they would say they would love to shoot a kudu and an oryx and a springbok, but they would never be able to hunt a giraffe or a zebra even, because they've got a daughter that loves horses, and they would kill them if they come home with a giraffe or with a zebra. And the same with the giraffe. It's funny that even in the hunting community, there's a certain sensitivity towards some animals than others. And I hate that, because to me that's a type of racism. You know, it's like...
Actually, that's a good point.
They're all God-created species, and who are you to place a higher value of life on one animal, one species, and not another? It's a crazy idea.
So I guess you'll be pissed off at me that I have no value placed on the feral hogs in Texas.
Yes, I would. You know, and you make a good point, because again, then you go back to management, and people would say, "Yeah, but there's millions of these animals and that." But as a hunter taking a life, ultimately, we also need to take that responsibility and realize that for every action there's a reaction.
I agree with that, but there, you know, what's happened, and I'm far from an expert, but what's happened over the years, as cities have grown, as predators have declined, a lot of these animals have no predators anymore. So if you look at the feral hogs in Texas, I don't care if it's in Texas or where it is, to keep the population exactly the way it is today, you would have to kill 90% of them. It's absolutely impossible to do that. A female hog can get pregnant at 6 months. The gestation period is 100 days. So within the first year, she can have 2 litters of 12 hogs. So that one female can have 24. And they're smarter than all the deer, all the other animals here.
No, I totally agree, and that's why management is important. And I agree
they haven't figured out how to manage those. That's the problem.
But the point is, if you're a hunter still, you shouldn't have an emotion, a stronger emotion for a different animal and not to be able to hunt it. It's funny, and you know, if you, for example, take the wolves in Sweden or in the whole of Europe, there's a massive problem with wolves all of a sudden. And people have a problem hunting wolves as trophies, but as soon as they get into the city borders or town borders, then it's okay to shoot them, because all of a sudden they're afraid of their children in the streets. And people can't get that fact back through to Africa, where people literally live with lion and elephant on their doorstep. I mean, those children have to walk to school through them.
I know people that have not been there just don't grasp.
No.
As elephant as an example.
And placing a higher value on that animal, like you mentioned on the cheetah, instead of a human being.
Exactly. But people have never seen the destruction that a small herd of elephants can do.
Sure, yeah.
They've just have never seen it.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, the more people you get coming to Africa, the more they'll learn.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think Mark Haldane, what I started to say is that Mark said something really interesting. He said that there's a certain percentage of the people that are hunters and understand it.
Yeah.
There's another fairly big percentage of people that are kind of ambivalent.
Yes.
Hunt, don't hunt, whatever it is. But they probably have some passion or moderate passion towards conservation. And then there's the other group way over there that it doesn't matter what you do, they're never going to agree with you.
No, that's
Right.
100% right.
Yeah,
And that middle part, that middle percentage is very large.
it is.
And that's why I think it's very important to from that percentage, to have the empathy towards who we are as hunters and why we do what we do. Ultimately, it's all about habitat preservation.
Yeah.
I mean, look at your hogs. They're destructive.
Well,
look
it's
at
about-
the elephant. They're
yeah.
destructive. And it's taking away habitat from
Right.
so many other creatures.
Yeah, people don't understand that.
No.
And again, I mentioned a little while ago that Ducks Unlimited, and this is the second time I've said this in 2 different podcasts, did such a great job when the breeding habitat of the ducks was disappearing in
Yeah.
Canada. This was years and years and years ago, and they just did such a great job. People don't understand it's the habitat that's the problem. You know,
Yeah, no,
that's-
it's ultimately that's what we all need is habitat preservation, because without that we won't have any wildlife. We'll have zoos and maybe a little bit of national parks left, but no true
Real
wilderness
wildlife.
experience anymore.
So tell me a little bit about safaris in Namibia.
Ooh, we won't be able to stop this podcast.
Well, that's okay. We got some time.
I'm joking.
You know, I mean, why would look? Let me ask it this way: if you were to say, if I was to say, I want to go to Africa hunting, why should I come to Namibia instead of Zimbabwe? Except for I did see a pangolin in Namibia.
A pangolin.
Yep.
Oh, that's beautiful. And
The PH I was with was born and raised there. That was the first one he'd ever seen.
Yeah, I know that's very special.
Yeah.
But that will maybe
Anyway.
prove my point. Namibia is the second least populated country in the world. So you can imagine
didn't know that.
the absolute vastness still left there. And like I've mentioned earlier, there's no water, there's no crop production, very little of it. Unfortunately, with COVID, it forced some people to start with charcoal production. But still, Namibia offers vast landscapes that I don't think the rest of Africa can really still offer in that regard, especially with the amount of people. But I don't want to play off one country against another. I think every country in Africa has absolute uniqueness to them that deserves a hunt, a visit from anyone internationally. I really believe that everybody has a little piece of Africa in their hearts and feel that they belong there as soon as they step off a plane. But Namibia, is an extremely harsh country. It's rugged, it's harsh, it's dry. And I don't say this to put it in a disadvantageous position, but the beauty that comes from it is absolutely incredible. And ultimately, it trickles down to the people. We've got some of the best people in the world. They are happy to have you. They're friendly. They know what hardship means. They know what droughts means. They come through it. We talk about COVID, but Namibia actually had COVID for 5-6 years already because we went through a terrible 3-year drought before that. The people were literally on their knees. But that's besides the point. Namibia is just an absolutely incredible country. It's the land God made in anger. And it offers
I like that.
wildlife and spaces in infinity.
I have to tell you, the tracker that was with me when I was there, I had so much fun with him. It was unbelievable. And we laughed and laughed and laughed.
And I can see that right in front of me. It's such a general thing. People they love their country and they love showing off. They love, for a very long time, Namibia was a kind of a hidden secret. I had some clients 10, 12 years ago that said, I wish no other people would discover Namibia. So it really, and I also think Namibia is very underrated when it comes to hunting. I think, because it's so safe, and because it's so easy accessible, and because it's economically stable, and all of that, it's not difficult to do. So if you want to hunt buffalo, you should go to Tanzania. But in the meantime, Namibia has beautiful, unbelievable Caprivi buffalo. You can hunt all of the big five in Namibia.
Right.
So I do think it's underrated in a certain sense. It's got much lower prices, but obviously other countries have taxes and things that doesn't necessarily apply to Namibia. And in Namibia, all the people living in Namibia have 100% full ownership of wildlife. And again, that shows this was directly one of the contributions that made conservation in Namibia so, because all of a sudden people owned wildlife. They protected it much, much more than just having a lease on it or a certain right on it, and where government wants a certain cut of it. I mean, look at Tanzania. They're really struggling to get rid of all those extra loaded taxes that are being placed on them. So I must say, in that regard, Namibia's government has always seen what hunting means, and that people need to own the wildlife, and especially when we talk about dangerous game, to be able to protect it as well.
I didn't know that, but just in business, but with all things, when somebody has ownership, everything changes.
Yeah, and that's just how it is, and that's why you'll see such a love for the animals and nature, and not a random destruction.
Right, but it's also, and you mention it, but I think I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. You said it's safe. I think that it's got great hospitals. If you get injured in Namibia, I think that the care that you get from Namibia is probably one of the best care that you'll get
fantastic
on the
private
continent.
Hospitals,
Exactly.
fantastic doctors, specialists.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Namibia is kind of a, what did you say? It was God's what?
Yeah, it's a land God made in anger.
Okay. But if something happens to you, I would, throughout the African nations, I would probably be much happier in Namibia if I needed attention.
Health-wise, safety-wise, if you want to do an extra excursion and do a self-drive, just safari. I mean, if you've got a flat tire, the first vehicle that will stop will be somebody to help you and assist you to change that tire. So it's really
better cancel my trip to South Africa and go back to Namibia.
Don't do that.
Well, no, I at one of the galas, not the galas, but recently I bid on because look, I'm a big supporter of conservation and Dallas Safari Club. So Tim Fallon harassed me until I got a sable hunt in South Africa, so I have to do that. Yeah. One of the things that I'm also passionate about is I'm a real believer in one shot, one kill. I absolutely get pissed off with people that go hunting and they couldn't hit a bull in the ass with a bass fiddle from 2 yards away. And it just annoys me because I think you have a responsibility to kill that animal as quickly and as most efficiently as possible. Most
certainly. It's very important. And again, it's your responsibility. Every action has a reaction. Yeah. And we are all ethical hunters. And that's why it's important to know your gun. You know your limitations on your gun as well as yourself. Don't try and be a big shot, and these long-range shooting and things, I hate it because an animal still needs a fair chance to escape. And you also need to have a responsibility to get as close as you can to do a one-shot, one-kill. I mean, that is the best possible outcome. Nobody wants to know. Those people that want to take those chances shouldn't call themselves hunters.
I agree. I agree completely. And unfortunately, they do, and they take some great pride in telling somebody that they shot something from 1,000 yards away.
Exactly.
And my question, I've never actually talked to one because it probably wouldn't be a very pleasant conversation because I shoot out at 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, 1,600 yards on a fairly regular basis, but only because
it's a sport.
It's a sport, but at the same time, now I know if I have an elk at 500 yards and I can't get any closer, I know I can shoot it.
Yeah, and there's situations as well where you need to do a backup shot on a wounded animal, and then you need to also be accurate.
Right. But so even shooting at those distances, I promise you, I can't hit the kill zone. There's so much that comes into play at these people that shoot something at 1,000 yards. So if they say, well, I killed this, my question is, how many shots?
Yeah.
Because
No,
if
I
it's more
totally
than one
agree.
shot, I don't think that you've done your job.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you there. Totally.
But I also find, don't you, that so many people they're very happy to spend more money on a gun and very happy to spend more money on a scope, but don't want to spend any money on learning how to use them.
That's 100% true. And Mark just mentioned it as well. Going to a proper school like with Tim Fallon, it teaches you ways, and not only to shoot the rifle, but to really connect with your rifle and to understand it. A lot of people ask us, because you know how difficult it is to travel with rifles these days, with airlines. You need to use specific airlines and paperwork and all of that. So a lot of people go over to renting rifles when they visit, which is fine. But then they would ask which would be the best caliber to hunt. But the best caliber is always your own rifle.
Exactly.
Knowing that one rifle off by heart, And I also believe in, I know there are many collectors out there, and even myself have a wide variety of calibers, but there should be one rifle that's always your go-to. Because the better you know it, and the better you connect with it, the more assured you are of that one shot, one kill.
That's true, but unfortunately, if you're in North America, you hardly ever use a 375.
Yeah.
I use a 7mm Rem mag, and I have a 6.5 Creedmoor that I'll use on smaller animals. But that's not something that I can bring for a dangerous game animal in Africa.
No, and please, let's not talk calibers, because you'll hate me probably after this. I hate fast calibers. I hate the 300. I hate those. It's just, and purely because, especially in Namibia, we need to do on a fast caliber like that. If you hit a small little twig or a grass halm that you didn't see, the bullet deflects. It's probably the caliber after which I've walked after for the most wounded.
300?
The 300.
I don't use one of them.
Yeah. So I love the slower calibers, especially if you have to make a backup shot as well.
Unfortunately, the ammunition manufacturers are going the opposite direction. We could talk about that all day, different calibers, But do you need water or anything?
No, I'm fine.
Because
fine,
Joe's... Okay. Tell me a little bit about your work with the Professional Hunters Association.
So I've been there for many, many years. I think it was a good 9, 10 or 11 years where I was involved at the Namibian Professional Hunting Association, first serving on the board and then as vice president and then president for 5 years. And it was an amazing time, and it's a fantastic association. I wouldn't know where to start in answering that question specifically as to my work there. It wasn't really my work, it's really a collective work of the membership, working together with the ministry.
But okay, so let me what is the goal of the Professional Hunters Association?
One thing, and it's to secure the future of hunting in Namibia. So
and how do you go about that?
Anything that happened, I would ask myself that question, and whether it would serve the mandate of securing the future. So, and ultimately, it also made you work a lot with all the other African hunting associations, with great associations like Dallas Safari Club Foundation, to get a synergy going of like-minded movement of where we need to go to ultimately protect habitat. So whether it was with the ministry on regulations, whether it was on different types of marketing, on social media, there's an array of things that we needed to work on throughout the years. But I think also the last couple of 5, 6 years, the most important was probably advocacy. That was the most important, to really prove our conservation effort, to know what we do, the responsibilities that we take, and to really prove ourselves as conservationists ultimately. And it's not easy always. People that don't belong to an association, I feel, don't have a place around the table, because I really think that if you don't belong to an association, you've got no reason not to, except if you've been disciplinary-eared or anything like that. So even if you don't agree with everything that happens there, I think it's a responsibility to be part of an association or a club in your country that promote that. And that's how UFA actually started, the Operators and Professional Hunting Associations of Africa, where I'm very much involved with as well. And it started purely because of cross-border hunting, where PHs from different countries would hunt in a different country, taking the money back
because there's no
home.
fence there, they could.
Yeah. So, and that's ultimately important for each country to get its dues, what it deserves. Don't go and hunt a Nyala in Namibia. It's not endemic to Namibia.
Right.
Do it in South Africa or Zimbabwe or where it's endemic to. So, yeah, but I've trickled off the real question. But all of that advocacy, and to help people also understand that Africa is not a small country. It's a very large continent with such a great variety of different countries, different species, different people, that the uniqueness lie there. So if anybody wonders who they should hunt with, you're welcome to go onto the UFA website, ufa.org, and you can put in any PH's name, and it throws you down a list of where he's registered in which countries, because that way you also assure that you hunt with somebody that contributes to that country, which it deserves.
Right. Well, that's a good point. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
It's always a challenge, I think, for people that it's, if you were not in the industry that you are, it would be as big a challenge for you to come and find a good outfitter in Canada as it is for people that are non-industry finding a good outfitter in Africa. It's always a challenge. And have you found or seen any difference in the last 10 years, say, with younger PHs coming and with their good, bad, or indifferent, or,
Oh, yes. And you can especially hear it when you're at APHA, the African Professional Hunters Association, where you've got these great PHs, Mark Aldane, Jeff Ran, Ivan Carter, Mike Angelidis, Michelle Monteakis, all those. And they can feel it. And I think and not to be negative and not to blame the young guys, because they need to come up in these ranks and they need to get educated. But I think it's become too easy to just become a professional hunter. And Zimbabwe is doing a great job with that. They really have a very strict apprentice system that you need to go through to grow yourself into it. Because the most disturbing thing that you can have is sitting around a campfire and asking your PH why does he hunt, and he can't answer you. I promise you, you won't believe the amount of people that can't really answer that question, without just saying, "Oh, I love hunting," and there's a difference. So, yes, I can definitely see it. I definitely think that there's a need for a better cohesion between countries to give these guys opportunities to really experience different kinds of safaris and to grow themselves into that type of ethic and that type of person that we all want them to become.
I wonder sometimes if it's not for a lot of these young people, I think growing up there going, I love being outdoors. This is an easy way for me to make a living. And then finding out, well, maybe it's not such an easy way. Because one of the things I talked about with Mark, is COVID has had, I think, a tremendous effect, certainly for all of us. But I think the PHs and the outfitters in Africa, it's devastating.
Yes.
And, and I think that contributes to some of the challenges with booking new hunts, because you get 2020 people. Some of them rolled them over to 2021 to find out they're still not capable of going. Now it gets rolled to 2022. Some of the outfitters, maybe refunded the money, but some of the other people got the deposit and spent it.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
Yeah, it's devastating, and you need that cash flow. You need that deposit to go through the year, but the more you extend it, the more broke you become.
Exactly, yes.
And there's a big difference, and yeah, you're right, with PHs realizing afterwards that this isn't an easy job. And it's not only a job, you've got a responsibility towards conservation. You know, there's many what we call freelance PHs, and they sell on the floor, they've got their booths, and they sell hunts, but they don't own they don't own land. They don't have to take the responsibility and the capital investment constantly on those areas. So they don't really lose that much. Yes, they'll lose their income, but the other guys lose their income, plus they have to continue with all
Well, like
this.
Mark, he's got, I think he said 55 full-time employees.
Yes, we've got
He's
60.
got 200 part-time.
Exactly. So imagine that amount of extra dedication.
Right.
So, and that's another good point that Mark also said. Ask if you want to do a safari. One of the questions is this your area? Do you have the full hunting rights, or are you just leasing it? Are you just taking me to a different area to hunt this and this and that? It's important because ultimately those are the guys. And Mark and I chatted very quickly when he walked out of here. He said, you know, he thinks with COVID it might have helped a little bit to just sieve through again on what's really happening on the ground. And again, we want to call ourselves conservationists, and we are. But it's also a responsibility of the hunter doing his homework and seeing, but where is my money ultimately going? And for what use would this be? And what type of experience would I have? And, you know, ask those questions. And I'm happy to help anybody. In fact, if somebody comes to my booth and it's his first time, I'll actually write down the question. I say, go to these 5 or 6 people and ask these questions. And if you're happy with it, I'm not going to give you the answer. But you'll know if you are happy with those answers, and then make your choice.
Well, one of the things I told Mark, because I believe firmly in this, is that if I go on a hunt wherever it is, I want to talk to the outfitter if he's going to be the ultimate, he has the ultimate responsibility, it's true, but because I'm in the industry, most often the outfitters will also be my PH because it's just because I'm fortunate enough to be in the industry. But if I'm going someplace, I want to talk to somebody like Mark. I think you were sitting here because I want to make sure that we have, if we spend a week together, I want to make sure it's a good week that we both can walk away from and say that was really a lot. Because I become friends with these people. You know, Tim Fallon and I met 20 years ago, and you know, I'm sure he feels that it's the best thing that happened. We've become really close friends over the years. We've hunted a number of times. We're going on another hunt in February, wolf hunt.
Oh wow!
You know, but you become friends with these people.
Of course.
But there's sometimes you just can't get along with somebody. It's just, they're not bad or you're not bad.
No, I totally agree. I mean, if somebody can tick all those boxes, but if you can't feel that connection, then you don't do it.
Right.
I mean, you're perfectly right in that.
But I think you also heard me talking a little bit about why don't people go to Africa hunting? It's a hell of a lot cheaper than it is here. If I want to go on an elk hunt here, just as a regular citizen, it's going to cost me at least $8,000. How many animals can I get? Plains game is animal for that price.
It bugs me as well. I don't get it. And I don't know if people are worried about traveling or going to Africa or scared or... I don't know, because I totally agree with you. I think if you look at the exotics market in Texas, it's crazy the amount of people that would hunt oryx or kudu.
And it's crazy the amount of money.
Yes, and for one animal. And, you know, and I understand that you've got species-specific hunts in the States, like you've got an elk hunt or a moose hunt or a whatever it might be. But that price would never buy... or would buy you so much more in Africa on a variety of plains game, and for that experience. Ultimately, the animals shouldn't even count. Just to set foot in Africa, see those beautiful sunsets, smell the grass, hear the jackal cry.
It's interesting, though. I think I might have an answer.
Okay, go for it. Let's see.
Well, first of all, I'm Canadian.
Okay.
So I was born and raised in Canada.
You said that already.
Well, I'm a U.S. citizen. I've lived here for a number of years. One of the big differences between Canada and the U.S., Canada are truly international.
Wow, yeah.
They feel very comfortable traveling. They feel very comfortable in different languages, not even that they can speak them. But it's just because it's a country with two official languages, French and English. If you ask most Canadians where you're from, they'll say, I live in Calgary, my family is from Holland, or Denmark, or wherever it is. So they feel very, very comfortable internationally, and subsequently I think they feel it's not a big deal to get on a plane and travel. Americans, when passports became mandatory for traveling between Canada and the U.S., I can't believe, and I don't recall the number, but the small amount of U.S. citizens with passports was incredible. It was just tiny. So I think that there's so much here that they've spent their entire life here.
Oh, yes.
They don't feel comfortable traveling.
I mean, some people haven't even left their state
Right.
in America, and which is, on the one hand, sad, but on the other hand, it just shows you that what a great nation this probably is and country this is. They don't need to leave. They've got everything they want. It's beauty. All the different states are wonderful, but still.
No, just a second here. California and New York,
Here we go.
with the politics, not so much. Anyway.
But yeah, it's a pity. It's a lot of Americans, and I'm not talking really about the hunting community, but if we're in an Uber or just the general American public and small towns that we visit, they think they can fly to Ngorongoro Crater from Namibia in half an hour. In the meantime, it's days apart.
Exactly.
So they don't understand how big of a continent Africa is, and they don't get the geography of the world really. So it shows you that they're really not educated in traveling, and it's a pity because everybody should visit Africa.
I think so too. I think people should travel as much as they can because
it's the best education.
It's the best education there is. When my wife and our children were young, we lived in. They weren't super. Yeah, they were pretty young. We lived in France, and we lived in Austria. And
Sie können auch Deutsch sprechen.
Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. Sie?
Ja, kann ich auch.
Ja, gut. Not bad, huh?
Not bad. Well done.
So, just got off track now. I wanted ein kleines Bier, bitte.
I love that. You were saying you lived both in France and Austria.
So what happened is we came back and they were young, and they just turned into such confident kids.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because when you're in a country that people don't speak the same language, everything is different, you don't have your family, your friends, you rely on each other, so it's a very close-knit family.
And you have to help yourself.
Nobody's there to help you. And the kids came back and they're so self-confident, it's unbelievable. Yeah. And, their education suffered a little bit because they were traveling. I mean, their formal education, although both of them are now graduates with master's degrees and things like that. But they weren't the top of the class because they spent their time learning different things. Exactly. I think travel is just the best thing in the world.
I totally agree, 100%.
So we could talk about stuff like this all the time. What about the DSC and their foundation? I think there's Namibia. You have been recipients of the foundation a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I start to stumble when I think of that because I really think that on all different aspects, whether it's advocacy, whether it's financial support, whether it's ideas, Dallas Safari Club and the DC Foundation has just always been there. They've always listened, they've always had an ear, and not only that, they go over into action and they make a plan and they help. I'm amazed, and it's not only this year, it's not only last year, it's years now, years and years that this Dallas Safari Club and the foundation has grown into such a friend of hunters. And I don't think that should ever be taken for granted. They do so much work. But like I said, I mean, the finances are a lot and the work is a lot, but the best thing about them is that they listen and they go over into action. And
they're a pretty remarkable organization, I think.
They're really remarkable. Yeah. They put their money where their mouths are. They listen. They help governments. They help anti-poaching teams. They help outfitters. They help associations. And like I said, it doesn't always need to be financially, but purely their support and their structure and the people that are here, it's just incredible. I'll never be able to thank them enough for everything that they've done in the last years, and I can just envision the great, great things that are coming for the next 20 years.
I hope people continue to support them.
Oh, they will. They must, because it will be a big mistake if they stop.
Well, just like Namibia and the PHs, the young PHs, don't know any of them, have nothing against them. Young people here are coming in. Are they going to have that same passion?
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope so as well.
I think the example that this club and its foundation sets is so strong, and it is so good that I can't think that younger people are not positively encouraged by it. And I really hope that they will. I know that they will see it and they will feel it, and they would want to take that forward.
I know my own son is interesting enough because I have not spent my entire career in this industry. I spent the greatest majority of my career in the ski industry.
Oh, wow.
I was a turnaround guy that happened to stumble into the firearms industry 20 years ago.
Wow. What a life.
Yeah, it's been an interesting life. I've had a lot of fun with it. But I don't even know where I was going with this. But
your son.
So my son never grew up hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just taken to it a few years ago. Now his fiance, he's getting married in April, and he's off the family, the family bank account, etc.
Congratulations!
But nonetheless, he's passionate about hunting now. He just loves it, and
through your example, you think?
Well, it's kind of interesting how that came about. I travel a lot for business reasons, and usually when I travel personally, my wife's with me, but she called me one day, and this was 2 or 3 years ago, I think. Our son's name is Dale, and she said, Dale wants to know if you'll take him hunting. I said, why didn't he phone me? Well, he was just asking me. And I said, what'd you tell him? She said, of course he will. I said, absolutely, I'll take him hunting. So I said, before we go hunting, you're going to learn how to shoot. So I took him down to FTW. And I don't even know how many years ago. And so he could learn how to shoot. But my wife was talking to me, during that time, and she said, it wasn't the shooting or the hunting he was talking about. Everything was about, I can't wait to go someplace with Dad. That's a pretty important thing that people seem to forget. It's, this is a family thing. If your children want to spend time with you, what a great way to do it. So he actually started hunting, and we started kind of with the youth. And then about a year or so ago, I was talking to Tim Fallon, and I said, you know what? This is a perfect time. Why don't you do a new hunters program? He said, what do you mean? I said, a new hunters program. People, with the pandemic and everything that's going on, and the younger generation wanting to buy great food, field to table, it's a perfect opportunity. Now, the problem is, many of these people, like my son's fiance, they're not from a hunting family, so they don't really know anybody. So why don't you offer a new hunters program? Teach them not just about shooting, teach them about the game, teach them about processing, field dressing, teach them everything. He had a tough time getting the first one filled, but finally did, and had 12 of them this year. It's a pretty good thing. So I have hopes and faith that the youth will follow along, and will learn.
This world, and COVID has shown us this again. We want to go back to natural, organic states of living. So I want to throw it in there. If they finish that program, they should buy my recipe book From the Veld. It's a wonderful book with so many venison recipes.
Well,
and
where do
all
I
sorts
get
of-
it?
I've got one at my booth, or some at my booth.
Okay. I'll be by.
But look at the website, fromtheveld.com.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful book that actually has menus set out already with venison, plus all your add-ons, vegetables, salads, cakes, breads.
Because one of the things that we did at FTW, we had all those. In addition, we had a game chef.
Yeah, and that's very important, and especially like for your new daughter-in-law. I mean, she would get that beautiful venison and cuts and sirloin.
My son's the chef in the family.
Okay, good for her.
And you know, so we eat game quite often. My dog has got a nonstop supply of raw game meat. That's all he eats ever.
Yeah, I actually we've started a book. Well, we've always had the butchery, but with COVID, we were forced to look at different ways of sustaining ourselves. And I started Aru Blockman, which is a huge butchery. It's taken off so strongly. We deliver meat, masses of it every Thursday, and in anything from dried sausage to hamburger patties, mince, cheese, sausage, everything. And part of that, I started to make dog food based on the BAF diet. So a wonderful combination with game meat, raw vegetables, raw fruit that goes into it.
Yep.
So there's so many things that living off the land just
People
brings
don't
us
realize
back to.
how healthy game meat is.
Yeah.
Or just, you know, game meat, any raw, like for dogs.
Yeah, it's
Their coats are
organic.
shinier. Their breath doesn't smell. They don't have plaque on their teeth. It's wonderful. So
Yeah, so come get one of my books.
I will for sure. Danene, I don't think we could stay here for a long time,
Yeah,
but
we
I've got to wrap up.
Yeah, no, of course. It
So
was
I really
lovely
appreciate it.
talking with
It was
you.
great. And surprised that I could speak German.
Noch ein Bier, bitte. I love that.
Yeah, of course. which is interesting because I don't even drink. But actually, if I go to Germany, I will have kleines Bier.
Ja, du musst mal.
Yeah.
It was great to be here.
It was a
Thank you so
pleasure.
much for having
Thank
me.
you.